Hi. I'm getting a nice little mullet going on from the quarantine. Woohoo. Um, so we left off last time where we had a completed board. Uh, I went ahead and just trimmed off the extra space that wasn't getting used on my board. Just because it's going to be kind of a tight fit. So I just went ahead and, there was like a half an inch this way, and then there was probably half an inch on each side. And so you can just take your little wire snipper and just kind of take that excess stuff off. The other thing you're gonna need to do, I've done this on mine already, but if you remove the nut, there's like this tab that was here. You're gonna wanna just go ahead and snip that off, okay? So what we're doing right now is we're just kind of prepping the board. The other thing you want to do is, with all the wires that are hanging off of your board, you're going to want to go ahead and tin the end of the wires. And we went over tinning in the last video, but we'll just do a quick refresher, okay? All right, so basically you want to get your snipper and just get a little bit of exposed wire. Like, yeah. I'm gonna keep hitting that stand like that. And then we'll take the iron and we basically want to put some solder on those, so when you're working with the wire they don't splay out. That's really all there is to it. You just get a little solder on your gun, on the tip of your soldering iron, and then you just kind of touch it to the spot that you want to tin on the wire. And that's it. You see that? Everything's just bound together. It's not going to go anywhere. All right, the next thing that we're going to want to do is prep the foot switch. You want to make sure that the lugs where the holes are facing like north and south. So not this way, but this way. Okay. And then we're going to want to get like a little piece of leftover wire from when we snipped one of our components. And we're just going to kind of create a horseshoe. It's been challenging for me to figure out a way to film this without having the camera apparatus in a spot where I always hit it. And you know that if you watched a couple of these. But, but yeah, once that is on there, you literally just touch it to the lug and then bring the solder in. Just like that. Now, these switches, you can see there's some plastic that kind of hold the lugs in place. So you don't want to sit and hold the iron to that for very long, because you can wreck these. But just if you do it kind of like that, if if your iron's ready to go and you're just like, boop, boop, then you should be in business. In fact, we can prep the rest of the switch now by simply getting the solder ready in the other lugs. We're not going to use this bottom middle lug for this build, so you can just ignore that. But for the rest of these, just get some solder on the tip of your gun, bring it in, and then just bring a little solder, just like that. And we'll just do that on all of them. So I went ahead and prepped the switch ahead of time. I'm using a little bit different enclosure than than the one you guys have, just because I have to use what's laying around the house today. There it is. Just get a ruler or something. You could eyeball it too, but if you want to just kind of measure about how far that is, we're looking at
If I wanted to be smart, I would do about 1 inch just to give myself some wiggle room. I went a little bit less than 1 inch here, so I'm asking for trouble, but I'll get it in there. Give yourself a little wiggle room when you can. You don't want it too low where it's like gonna be down by the switch, but I think, you know, that looks pretty good. And you could take a Sharpie or a pen or something and just sort of mark the spot. You can kind of figure out where the center is just by measuring it. This particular enclosure has a little circle in the middle for whatever reason. This is kind of recycled material. So I kind of use that and just sort of eyeballed it. And then you can sort of do the same thing with the foot switch too. Just kind of figure out like where you should put the foot switch in. So you can do that. And then as far as your LED goes, I usually just do it like right above this foot switch. Now the LED in your kit, it's kind of tall, and a few people are like, hey, it doesn't fit. But there's this like hard Bakelite plastic piece that's like black, and if you snip that so it's just the lug and the wires, you'll be good to go. Figure out these like drill spots, and then go ahead and drill it. Now, if you don't have a step bit, the stomp switch is going to be 31/64 bit. The pot is going to be a 19/64 bit. The instrument jacks will be 3/8, but don't do those yet, okay? And then the DC jack, try using the same one as the stomp. And if it doesn't quite fit, then just go up one more. Like once you get those drilled, then we're gonna look at a couple things, okay? Now, when you first start drilling, I would recommend using a small bit to create a pilot hole. Something about this size would be great. You'll create your pilot hole with a small bit, and then you'll just move to the appropriate size. Now, if using a step bit, you can always just go one at a time and then just check it with your board, and then you'll know that fits, or check it with your foot switch. It's really just kind of that easy. Anyway, once you get the these 3 holes drilled, and I kind of eyeballed it a little bit, so they're not completely perfectly centered, but whatever. Then we'll go ahead and just move on to the next step. Now with your foot switch, it's gonna be really important that you have a nut at the base, because if you don't, when you go to tighten it, you can actually just like rip this thing right off. So make sure there's a nut at the base, a lock washer if you have one, and that just kind of keeps it from moving around. And then just go ahead and pop it in there like that. You're gonna want the little horseshoe to be facing downward, okay? Just like that. And then go ahead and put the washer on, and then the top nut. So I'll just kind of do this by hand for a second. And then grab my ratchet here. All right, I'm just editing out some stuff just so we can kind of keep this moving along. But I had tightened this down with a ratchet. I'm putting my LED in. Like I said, the LED I have looks a little bit different than yours, but I'll get it in there, and that looks pretty snug. It's not going anywhere. It's gonna look like this on the back. And then the last thing you wanna do, again, make sure you've snipped that, whatchamacallit, that tab. Just kind of pop it in there, tighten it in. We're gonna take it out in a little bit, but I basically want to just mark the enclosure. So that's kind of, I'm just like loosely holding it in place. Do you see how mine kind of brushes against the edge of the enclosure? You don't really want that. It's gonna be fine for my build because this is plastic, so it's not gonna ground out on the enclosure. But, you know, in the case of a metal enclosure, it probably would ground out on something. But we're basically going to eyeball it here. Now just take one of your jacks, like this. And you can kind of see like where it's gonna, you've got a little bit of wiggle room in there, so it's not gonna hit the circuit board. We don't really want to hit the LED either though. So I'm just gonna say it's right there, it looks pretty good. And then I'll grab just something to mark that with. So I'll use a Sharpie. And I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it there and mark it. And then just do the same thing on the other side. And you can push these wires out of the way for the time being. Hit the board and stuff. And you should definitely clear the LED. So yeah, that's the nice thing about these enclosures. You do have some wiggle room. And again, just kind of eyeballing it here. Well, after you get your mark in there, you know, I would recommend just measuring it and kind of figuring out like where the middle spot is. Looks like I got it pretty close. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my drill. I do have to step it. You know, you could take this out. When you do this, I recommend doing this in a manner where the enclosure is really safely pressed against the desk. Maybe even use a vise if you've got one. But I'm gonna be dangerous and live on the edge right now. And you don't want it to get too close to here because you don't want the jack to ground out against the enclosure. So I'm gonna go right about there. I'm actually gonna take the LED out though. I have a feeling like I'm gonna, you know, I'm just gonna remove the circuit. The last thing I need is to have worked so hard on the board just to mess it up with the drill bit. That's looking pretty good, but I'm just gonna test it real quick, okay? Yep. Perfect. And then we'll just do the other side real quick. You'll notice to see it's clearing the LED hole, which is exactly what we want. If we don't quite clear it, we can always move it a little by turning it or whatever, but ideally you want to be able to put it in there and tighten it in. Cool. And then we also need to figure out the DC jack, so I'll just pop that back in there for a second just to kind of eyeball it. I think on this thing I'm probably gonna put the DC jack like right there, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of do the same thing. So the next thing I'll do is I'll just grab the DC jack. Cool. Do my LED. Your LED, I think, has a little, whatchamacallit, a nut to tighten it. This one doesn't. So it's a little wobbly. I might just super glue it. It's pretty snug, but you know, just to be safe. And then I'll pop the jacks in here real quick. If you have them, they're really nice. Not mandatory though, but if you have these little lock washers, you can get them 3/8 lock washers at like Home Depot. They just kind of keep it from moving, but you can totally make a pedal without one. It's not, certainly not mandatory. You might notice it's a total mess here. I have no excuse. It's pretty sad. I've just been building a lot, and I need to clean. That's all there is to it. Anyway, so that's great. You'll want to make sure that when you put an instrument cable in, it's not going to be like hitting against the enclosure. So I recommend just doing a little test at this point, just to test that. Now, you see that now on mine, it is actually hitting the enclosure a little bit. So you can just kind of turn it if you need to. It's probably why it's better to measure things and not just eyeball them, but you know, whatever. All right. Perfect. We're in business. All right, I'm gonna do the other side. All right, we're good there. Nothing's hitting the bottom of the enclosure. Cool. And then finally, let's take the circuit board that we've built and we'll put it in there. And as you can see, you know, you don't want the jacks hitting the circuit board either. So we're looking really good. We've got to sort out some wires a little bit here. So I think what I'm going to do, just to kind of clean this up a little, I do know that this is my 9-volt positive wire. This right here is from my LED. This is the input wire. The output wire is connected to the middle lug of the potentiometer. And this is my ground, okay? So I think what I might do is my ground and my 9-volt plus, I'm just gonna do this. So they're kind of hanging out the edge. Pop that in there. And we'll just tighten this down right now. If you do use a socket for your potentiometer, usually it's going to be a 10mm socket. So that'll be some useful information to know. All right, so we have that DC jack in. Very cool. Let me show you something with the DC jack, okay? You notice how there's like a bigger piece, a bigger lug right there? That's our ground from power. And then to the immediate right in the middle, that's gonna be our 9-volt plus. And then we're not using this one down here at all. That's normally there for, this is called a switching jack. So if we were to hook it up with a 9-volt battery, so you could choose a 9-volt battery or a wall wart, that's good to have, but we're not gonna worry about that today. Okay, so we're just using this and this, okay? If it helps you, you can take a snipper and just snip off that one. But I won't worry too much about it. All right, so let's go ahead and hook up our ground and our 9-volt. Now I'm trying to avoid having a big pile of spaghetti inside the pedal. I really don't need this much wire. I think what I might do is start with the 9-volt and then just kind of cut that down a little bit. So I know this is my so I went ahead and just did that, and I'm gonna tin the end. Okay. My players were holding on to something else. That's hilarious. All right, and then I went ahead and tinned the DC jack ahead of time as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply some heat and then get that wire inside. That's it. I mean, very, very simple. Cool. And then probably the next thing I'm going to do on this jack, the long piece, that's the tip, and then this is the sleeve or ground. So I'm going to hook the sleeve up to the ground. I'm actually going to show you a little trick. You can do this with, now if you're going to do what I'm going to do now, just make sure that, good Lord, this camera, I swear to God. Okay, just make sure that if you do this, that this doesn't touch the positive, but there's pretty good clearance. So what I'm going to do is, since I went ahead and tinned this ahead of time, I'm just going to grab my iron and do this. Check it out. So I can get the phone to quit moving. Okay. So I went ahead and just soldered this little metal piece right to the ground here. And then I'm going to bring it over to the jack. Very simple. And then this same thing, you know, we'll just go ahead and snip that. And pretty simple. This excess piece, we can just snip it or wrap it around, whatever you want to do. I think I'm just going to snip it. There. Now, when we had wired this up in the previous video, I had you attach an extra wire for your LED. That's this one here. You know, we don't, the LED that came with our kit actually has wire. So let's just use that. So I'm going to remove this wire, which is just, you know, right here. So just heat that up, and that'll pull right off. So the next thing we'll do is we're just going to attach the red LED wire right there, okay? So go ahead and get some solder on the tip of your gun. Let's make a little bit of a blob there. So we'll have to tin this. This wire's not ready. Okay. There we go. Bingo. Looking good. Okay. Now, this black LED wire, let's go ahead and tin that. I'm going to put it right there at the top middle lug of the switch. I have a little excess wire. So I'm going to go ahead and just sort of snip the excess wire a little bit. Okay, pretty easy. And then I know this is the input of the circuit, so I'll kind of do the same thing. So this is going to go in the top left lug, just like that, okay? Now, if you get confused, look at your diagram. Which wire is the input of your circuit? So that's the input wire. And then the output of the circuit comes from lug 2 of the potentiometer. So we're just gonna kind of do the same thing. I'm gonna give it a little leeway. You don't want the wire pulled so tight that it could easily snap. So I will give it just a little wiggle room. I think this looks pretty good like that.
Cool.
All right, that looks great. That's not, I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. You can just kind of, so yeah, it's gonna keep it pretty clean. There's not a bunch of wire all over the place. We have a few wires left to hook up. That middle lug is gonna go to ground. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna hook it up to the sleeve of the input jack. Now keep in mind, this is your input jack, so when it's on your right, when you're looking at the pedal like you're gonna play, but when you're building a pedal, everything's like a mirror, it's upside down, okay? So the sleeve of the input jack is the little lug over here, and then this sleeve is the little lug, but it's facing this way because the jacks are reversed. Does that make sense? So let's go ahead and hook up a ground wire. I've got a bunch of wire just laying around, so I'm gonna just grab something. hard. I have a little trouble with this angle. I'm trying to see what I'm doing and have the camera. Okay. You can tell it's like a fake laugh. That's like a frustrated fake laugh. Okay. There we go. So that's why I go ahead and tune these lugs ahead of time, just so you can, sometimes you have to work in tight spaces, you know, and it just makes it easier to do what you need to get done. And then that just needs to go right here. So I will also, the other thing you can do too is, like, if you're real meticulous, you can measure everything and cut your wires ahead of time. I know a lot of people that do that. I am not that meticulous. You probably figured out from my videos that I sort of wing it a lot. I don't know if winging it all the time is the best style for this type of craft, but that's just how I roll in general. It's my personality, so we'll just make it work. You know, just not getting a good solder joint because of this tip. I mean, look at this. This is sad. This is what you don't want, guys. But I've been in lockdown and I haven't had access to my new supplies. I'm gonna try to do something about that soon. I just didn't want to wait another week on this video. I meant to get this video out like 3 weeks ago, and then I just got like killed with work. But I am very thankful I have work to do. I know it's not everyone's in that position, and with Memorial Day weekend I can finally finish the video. And I'm actually glad I'm doing it. I've been getting really good feedback from people on these things. It sounds like it's been really cool. People are doing like a project with their kids. I've heard from a few people, and that makes me super happy. Get some good parent bonding time in. There's a lot of people that have never built before, and they've been making really. I swear to God, I'm going to throw the phone. Now you're probably gonna want to trim the wire. I'm just gonna let there be a little bit of spaghetti because I want to finish this damn video. Okay, so this middle left lug, that's going to the tip of your input jack, which is this buddy right here, okay? Now this middle lug to your right, that's going to go to the tip of the output jack. So let's get that soldered in. I think I actually will trim this one. I could deal with a little bit of spaghetti. I don't need a whole plate of spaghetti though. You know what I'm saying? Cool, works for me. I don't think it's gonna break. Seems stable. And then you can always just kind of do a little bit of cleanup, you know? You can kind of just make sure that stuff isn't sticking out everywhere. That's pretty all right. And then if you want, you could even use a zip tie. Hey, why not? Let's do it. It'll be fun. Let's live a little, you know? Don't let the man keep you down. Okay. Let's, you know, make it a little more tidy and beautiful. This is all you need to do on your pedal because you have an aluminum enclosure. So your sleeves are tied together by the enclosure. Because I did not use aluminum, I need to attach one more wire. You don't have to do this. Unless you used plastic or, you know, wood or something, if you're feeling zany. Which, you know, you might have been. You might have decided to build a pedal out of a fishing tackle box or something. Out of a... So just to review, I'm going to zoom in here. Okay. Get this wire out of the way. Middle lug goes to ground, so you can attach it to the sleeve of either jack. Bottom middle lug, you don't use it for anything. This lug and this lug, horseshoe. This lug here, that's your output jack. Now keep in mind, we're upside down, okay? So your output jack's over here, upside down. Goes to the tip of the output jack, okay? And the tip is gonna be the longer connector. Okay. This lug here, tip of the input jack, okay? This here, top middle, black wire for your LED. This one here, lug 2 of the potentiometer, or the output of the circuit board, okay? And then this one here, this is the input of the circuit board. So this is tied to that electrolytic capacitor. And then the red of your LED is tied to one side of the 10K resistor. The other side of the 10K resistor is tied to the 9-volt power rail, okay? Now, your DC jack, the big lug goes to ground. So I just put that right on the sleeve of the jack, and then I also tied the sleeve of the jack to ground of the circuit. All right. Let's plug it in and give it a listen. All right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that sounds like a fuzz pedal. Let's go ahead and put the bottom plate on and get a knob on this baby.
All right, so for the knob here, I'll just turn it all the way counterclockwise and then just grab a knob that I like. This one looks pretty cool. So I'll just kind of set it about there, then screw it on. You can pretty much use any set screw knob. And then if you have a knurled potentiometer, you'll have to get a knob with a knurled shaft, but it looks pretty cool. And, I mean, it's a cool pedal. Very simple. Looks pretty cool. Easy, functional, ready to party. So yeah, I think this is a complete project. I hope this video has been helpful. I'm going to put some resources up that will kind of help you out with switch wiring, and I'll try to respond to folks. Like I said, work's been kind of slamming me lately. which is good. I'm not complaining, so don't take it the wrong way. But I just haven't had free time, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. Too much free time right now is not always the best thing. Your mind can go in weird places, weird dark caverns. Okay, well, yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up. I will do my best to help out. I don't know if I will be able to personally do like video calls and like messages. But if somebody gets stumped or something, I'll do my best to help out. There is a donation. There's a tip jar, a Venmo tip jar in the description page. If you want to throw me a few bucks, then that just kind of helps cover my supplies. I pretty much did these little kits at cost, so that helps me out. Helps me get some coffee, but I'm not looking to make any kind of profit off of this. I just wanted to give you guys an activity to do and a new skill set. I hope you're doing well. If you just even feel like saying hi, just shoot me a message. I like hearing from you. If you build it and you like it and it works and everything, if you post it on Instagram, just go ahead and tag me, because I love seeing what you guys are coming up with. There's been some really cool ones. Yeah.